Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Carl. My name is Carl Zellner. I'm one of the Anderson Advisors attorneys, and it's a pleasure to have you all join me again. Today, I want to talk a little bit about a state-specific issue. Well, it's not really state-specific, I guess, but it's some questions that come up on a certain type of deed that I want to address a little bit today. As always, please remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends, and we always appreciate, a thumbs up here and there. So today we want to talk a little bit about pocket deeds. So most folks out there are not going to be overly familiar with pocket deeds. I'm thinking of a specific situation where we tend to use them. Usually it's in Pennsylvania because of their cumbersome transfer tax in Pennsylvania. And it's a way to do a deed without filing it and triggering, I guess, for lack of a better term, additional questions on it. So we'll hop in and get into that content today. So first things first, from a legal aspect, what makes an effective deed? What makes an effective deed is, number one, is there's something called the statute of frauds. So anything over $500 needs to be in writing. So deed must be in writing because it's using to transfer property. So there needs to be a writing, which in this case is the deed. The grantor, or the person who is moving the property, has to have legal capacity to do it. The grantor and grantee must be identified in such a way as to be easily ascertainable. So we need to know who it's going from and where it's going to. Usually the chain of title is enough to satisfy that element. So just as an FYI there. Property must be adequately described, which happens in a deed. Operative words of conveyance must be present. So for those of you familiar with deeds, this is basically where it says to and from. Basically all standard deeds at this point include that language, so it's not a high bar to meet. The deed must be signed by the grantor or grantors if property is owned by more than one person. Deed must be delivered to the grantee or someone acting on the grantee's behalf. Deed must be accepted by the grantee. Typically, deeds are accepted, though, delivery and acceptance is most commonly done, or basically it raises what's called a rebuttable presumption that it's been done by recording. It's not required, but that's true. That's basically how we're all familiar with it these days. And this is what's going to end up differentiating between a normal deed filing and a pocket deed. Okay. So normal deed filing, those sort of last two steps I mentioned, are done by recording the deed, which basically, as I mentioned, touches on delivery and acceptance because you've received it and you had it recorded. Not required though. So acceptance and delivery and acceptance can happen without the recording. And this is where that pocket deed comes in. So pocket deed is basically just a deed that is effective because it hits all those elements that we discussed, but is not filed with the county. So there is no notification to the local authorities that the property may have transferred. So what does the scenario look like when you do this? The scenario is technically if there was a transfer tax due upon transfer, the transfer still would have occurred. So you'd still be subject to that if you recorded it or if you reported it. Now, what most people are doing because of the cumbersome transfer tax requirements in some parts of Pennsylvania is they're holding on to this deed. And if for some reason something comes up, they can then produce the deed to show the transfer occurred, but it's not automatically triggering anything at the Pennsylvania county level because it's not filed. When it's filed, it automatically triggers it. You get the transfer tax notice, things like that. So it's a option that's out there. Like I said, it doesn't relieve you from any of those consequences of transferring the property should you need to do it, but it does create a scenario where you can, I guess, sort of choose when to notify the state if you need to that you did transfer the property. So pocket deeds are an interesting tool out there. Like I said, for a deed or for a transfer to be effective, it's not required to record. So that's where you find the little workable space in this area. However, having a pocket deed that way is a little different. So you need to know the pieces of it and work with a group that can help you understand those pieces. I think it's a cool tool that's out there. I have several Pennsylvania clients who use it and like it. But like I said, you sort of need to understand the what's happening and what could happen under that scenario. So yeah, pocket deeds, they're available. You can technically do them anywhere because, like I said, sort of the elements for an effective deed are pretty much the same from state to state on what makes it effective, at least. It's just a matter of, do you need to, want to file, or would you like to hold it in your pocket for a just in case time? And if you do, just understand the risk or the potential there and do your cost benefit analysis like you would for any investment. Until next time, thanks everybody for joining me. Hopefully that was I know it's a little bit of a confusing area because we're not most people aren't super familiar with pocket deeds, but hopefully that provides a little insight on the back end on how the deed is still effective, but how you can also relieve that automatic notification at the county level by basically holding off on the recording. So until next time, thanks for joining me for this episode of Coffee with Carl. Please remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.